sort of seen over time that when it comes to development, people tend to polarize a bit. There's either those that are scared of it or those that get seduced by it. What are they misreading and what are they getting wrong with those outlooks?
The reality is it's like learning another trade, okay? And like any trade, you need to put the due justice into the process to actually learn before you actually go out and do. And so when you put the effort in, it is no longer a get-rich-quick scheme. It's just get rich. And so it's effort, right? I like to think of it as an active sport. We make money by forcing value on through our knowledge and effort. So we need to A, have knowledge, and B, do effort. But when you get it right, then you only have to learn it one time. And if you pick the right kind of strategy, you can then start small, step up a deal size, and start to scale by reapplying the knowledge from the previous project into the next project. And so that's where it starts to get really smart.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show for Australians who want to learn how to unlock their full self, health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom and to live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life that you really want. Let's get started.
Hi, Freedom Fighters. Have you been thinking that the only way to keep building wealth in today's property arena is to ride the next wave of capital growth? Or are you waking up to the reality that passive investing alone might not be enough to get you where you want to go quickly enough, especially in the post-pandemic burnout and uncertain conditions that we're now facing? Because here's the kicker. Could you be missing one of the greatest opportunities to manufacture your own equity with strategic property development? Let me paint you a quick picture. Imagine two investors, let's call them Steady Steve and developer Dana. Both start with the same income, the same borrowing capacity, and the same dream of financial freedom. And yes, this is sounding a bit like the old compare the pair ad campaign by industry super funds. Now, Steve plays it safe, buys a few quality existing properties, rents them out, and holds them long term. 15 years on, Steve has built a solid $2 million in net equity and generates around $80,000 in annual rental income after costs. Now, let's have a look at Dana. Instead of just buying and holding, she adds another really important tool to her belt: property development. She starts small, learns the ropes, creates a great team, and over time starts buying, developing and selling a portion to eliminate debt and holding the best of the rest. And 10 years later, Dana's manufactured $4 million in equity and generates over $180,000 in residual rental income debt-free. Dana has created $100,000 more in passive income in 5 years less time. Same starting point, two very different results. And the only difference, Dana chose to manufacture equity, not wait for it. Now, before you go dreaming of designer suits, skyscraper selfies, and fast-track fortunes like a wannabe Temu Trump, let's hit the pause button. Because the truth is, property development's not for the faint-hearted. And yet, done right, with the right mindset, mentors, and method, it can be one of the most powerful and leveraged ways to grow your wealth, design your lifestyle, and ultimately gain your financial freedom on your terms. And never has the opportunity or the urgency been greater. With a big percentage of all property development in the country being driven by small-scale developers, and at least 1.2 million new homes needed in the next 5 years to meet the federal government's National Housing Accord targets, we're facing a full-blown housing crisis and the trains already left the station. And the reality is that we're already hundreds of thousands of homes short, and it's getting worse, as today's guest is about to explain. Why? Because builders have been going broke, the red tape speak, tradies are thin, and margins can be even thinner. And that's why the market is ripe for change, and why smart investors like you, who have the time, the team, and the means, are perfectly positioned to ride the next wave. So to help us navigate all of this, I've invited back the man on the development front lines, a leader who's helping to build more than homes, he's building financial freedom for thousands. He's the founder of the Property Developer Network, now with a massive number of members across Australia and growing fast, running monthly events right across the country, and soon to be expanding worldwide. And fresh from a research trip to China exploring new and better ways to reduce construction costs while increasing capacity, He's back with a bold vision for the future of housing. Yes, it's none other than Mr. Developer himself, Rob Flux. And he's Flux by name and Flux by nature, because Flux is an agent in metallurgy that improves flow and removes impurities, which is exactly what Rob does for property development. Now, Rob first joined us back on episode 230. And if you haven't already listened to that masterclass, hit the pause button, cue it up, and come back when you're done, because it lays the perfect foundation for today's ongoing deep dive. So if you're ready to think bigger, act smarter, build your wealth by design, let's get invested again. So welcome back, Rob.
Hey, Bushy, how are you, mate?
Really good, mate. Great to catch up and great to see that some exciting things have been happening on your world. But I guess just to kick things off, really, for those that are new to your story, give us a little bit of a backstory and what originally led you to create the Property Developer Network.
Look, I had a investor background for about 20 years. I bought my first house at 18, my first investment property at 21, and owned my first house outright at 24. So buy and hold for 20 years, and on paper, actually made it out. So by the age of 38, I could technically retire. But regrettably, at age 37, I had to put my toys back in the centre as I went through a painful divorce. I guess carved up the masses and had to start again. I didn't start from scratch, but I certainly didn't want to go back to ground zero and take 20 years to do it again. So I then, went on my own education journey. Spent about $120,000 on my education with what I would loosely say are spruikers, where felt very motivated, very inspired, but still didn't know what I was doing. And I read a book, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, talked about the power of the mastermind. And so I created my own mastermind. I got 5 mates around my kitchen table. We figured none of us knew everything, but collectively we could probably work it out. And as each mate invited a mate and they invited another mate, all of a sudden we found we started a property networking group. We are about a month shy of being 13 years of age. We now have 31,500 people in our community. And we still run events in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide, soon to be Perth. I love the fact that you said worldwide. So it does feel like another planet going on the other side of the country, mate. But it is in the grand plan to actually get there. And to this day, we still run the masterminding process at every single one of our events. We run about 45 events a year. So trying to teach people, I guess, the way I would have liked to have been taught in the first place.
Well, love it. Clearly some massive growth and a lot of activity happening in that space. What do you think's driving the massive momentum?
A combination of a couple of things, but housing affordability has been, a big challenge for a very long period of time. So people trying to get into the market has been challenging with interest rates higher. We went through, there was a couple of things that happened prior to COVID. We were actually in a bit of an economic slump to start with. So that's why the interest rates dropped down to zero. They're trying to stimulate our economy. So not many developers were doing developments because it just didn't make sense at that point in time. Then this thing called COVID happened. I'm sure you've heard of that. And we had this forced recession where we're all locked up and told not to do anything. And so the cost of everything went through the roof. You might remember there were media stories saying we're going to lose 20 or 30% in our property prices. And so, again, no developer in their right mind is going to do any developments. And then in order to stimulate the economy, the government has then done the building bonus, and everybody's rushed back into the market. And so there's very little slack at that point in time. And so the building bonus consumed all of the leftover slack that was actually there. And so all of a sudden, builders started to have all these price escalations because all the logistical supply chains weren't fixed, and then builders started going broke. So we had about 3 or 4 years of lack of potential supply, lack of DAs, then all the slack taken up. Then everyone went boom, and then no more development applications coming through. So we've got about, I'm going to say, 5 years where there's a lack of potential supply. So development approval is the potential supply. Now, then the actual lack of supply then comes from no builders to build it, even if there was a development approval.
Yeah.
And now you combine that with, I guess, the biggest population growth we've ever had. Last year, I think we had 450,000, give or take, I guess, people come into the country. So all these people needing somewhere to live, but there's no houses to put them in. And so you then combine all of that. The only thing that's stopping the property market from going through the roof right now is interest rates staying high.
Yeah.
And interest rates are coming down. So all of this is pointing to property development is a boom industry.
No doubt. Almost perfect storm in that context. And we'll dig into that in a bit more detail soon. But I'd love to sort of get you to give us a bit of an update on what, if anything's changed in both your approach and your vision since we last spoke back here on Get Invested in July 2022.
Oh, look, there's a heap that I'm trying to do in I guess the property group itself. So stimulate more people to actually be doing more things, and the reason for that is pretty simple. 80% of all development applications that go into every council in the country is a 6-pack and below. So 80% of all developments is a small scale mum and dad novice developer. And yet it's the big guys who get all the kudos.
Yeah.
Now, so we're trying to, I guess, build an army of people to solve the problem. Now, in doing so, what we've recognized in that process is small-scale mum and dads aren't represented in the industry. There's no industry association for them. So we have taken on the mantle to be that industry association. So we are now proactively reaching out to a whole bunch of government departments and have been successful with a number of those conversations. So we are currently in the Queensland Government's Building Ministerial Advisory Council. So talking about, I guess, the impacts of costs and, I guess, the things that are impacting that side of things. We're, I guess, in heavy discussions with the New South Wales government and also heavy discussions with Victorian government to say, how do we actually provide input into what small-scale developers are actually needing? And so for the first time, we're actually starting to get some traction where governments are actually starting to listen to us. Now, wheels of government turn slowly, so we're not got all the inroads yet, but we are seeing some really good progress. So that's from, I guess, the network side of things and how do we build an army. From a crusade perspective, I guess I'm still on my mission for 1,000 people financially free, and officially we've got 72 that can stick their hand up and put a name to it, but we've got a lot more in the pipe. But in order to get everyone to mobilize, we've recognized two big problems in, I guess, the industry. So one, lack of builders and the cost of construction. So the builders are taking twice as long to build. So before COVID, you could build a house in 6 months. Now everything's 12 months, right? So the cost of the materials have gone up. The cost of the labor has gone up. The timeline has blown out. So the holding costs have gone up. So that's created a huge amount of challenges. So if we can reduce the time and reduce the cost, then it also reduces the risk. So I've been on a mission to do that. And you touched on the fact that I went to China. One of the reasons for that, one, a little bit of fun, got to do something. And I guess the second one, we went to the Canton Fair. We went and spoke with, I guess, the Canton Fair. About 50-odd suppliers are actually there. We also spoke with the Shenzhen government and about 120-odd suppliers there to say, how do we actually bring down the cost of materials? That's the first part. And secondly, how do we start to look at things like prefabricated construction, where the assembly happens in a factory in a fraction of the time, and then when we get to site, we're assembling them, not constructing them, which means that a builder, instead of taking 12 months to build a home, can now take 2 weeks to build a home, which means that he can build more homes, which means that his profitability goes up, means our risk exposure is lower because we've got less chance of the builder going broke. If he's doing more projects and more profitable, he's going to be less likely to be broke. Means our market exposure is less. So the fact that the market can fluctuate at a whim. That's down. It also means our holding costs are massively down. So we see it as a win-win-win in a whole bunch of departments. The challenge is that all of our regulatory framework is not yet ready for it. Okay, so and there's a whole bunch of processes that we need to change in the industry to make that happen.
Yeah.
The first challenge, the funders, they will only fund when the material is not only on the ground but physically installed.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're trying to get it manufactured offshore, funders don't want to play. So we're working on solutions to solve that problem and hope to be able to announce something relatively soon in that department. The second one is, I guess, inspectors building to the Australian standards. Well, China actually manufactures for all countries all the way around the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, USA, all that sort of stuff. So it's just about picking the right product off the shelf. That shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
And then having inspectors onshore in China to actually inspect in the factory as it's being constructed to make sure we're building to the National Construction Code. And then having certifiers here that are willing to work with, I guess, those offshore resources as an extension of themselves. So when we start to look at that sort of things, I think we've got some really good wheels in motion. What we really need now is for all the houses in Australia to be designed for manufactured assembly, because at the moment we're not designing for it, which means it can't be built in a factory even if we want it to. And yet the build quality is amazing. Right. People have this preconceived idea that it's just a container ship, right? And yes, there are some that are there, and that's probably why they get the bad rap. But it doesn't have to be that. Prefab and modular has about 10 different technologies that can be combined in a lot of different ways. Yeah. That means that you can have a flat pack house all the way through to container house, all the way through to high-rise apartments that are actually built in containers, and they can be the size of a shipping container, or they can be custom built, I guess, and very, very luxurious in their build spec. But everyone has this preconceived idea of it's just a shipping container.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and some very exciting stuff that you're talking about. I think and I love the fact that the Property Development Network's almost becoming a lobby group and a voice for the development industry, given, as you so well point out, 80% of development is done by mums and dads. And I guess what frustrates me, and I'm sure you share the same frustration, Rob, in recent years, investors of any description, whether they're existing or building, have been villainised and pretty much targeted by all levels of government and penalised every which way. Whereas from my own perspective, I think private developers, private investors are a big part of the solution, not the problem. And it's pretty obvious we're biting off our knives to spite our face. What's your read on how we can change? It's a bit of a paradigm shift in the outlook, particularly of governments and others, to start to recognise, to embrace investors as our friends, not treat them as foes.
It's a systemic issue where there's a perception that investors and, I guess, by association, developers are money-hungry, greedy people that, just want to rape and pillage the earth, right? What they fail to realise is that property developers in particular are the makers of community, okay? We are the people who have a look at the the supply and demand curve and understand the demographic of the people coming in, and we put a solution in place that somebody needs before they realize they need it. Okay. Yeah. Now, I don't know the exact age of Australia doing the math, 1788, I think. If we go all the way back then, we were a one-lot land subdivision. Yeah. And ever since then, every house, every school, every road, every shopping centre, everything that you see was built by a developer understanding the needs of the community at the time and putting the right solution in place. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the people who are anti-development forget that the fact that the house they're living in was built by a developer. Yeah. Right. And at that time, that was the need of the community right then. But the needs of the community is changing. And so what we need to do is account for that change and go, what does the future solution look like? And it's the people who can solve that problem that will actually make the money in the process.
Yeah, beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. Now, in the context of that, there's obviously a big opportunity, but I'd love your thoughts on this. I've sort of seen over time that when it comes to development, people tend to polarize a bit. There's either those that are scared of it or those that get seduced by it. What are they misreading and what are they getting wrong with those outlooks?
Well, I'll firstly say rightly so that they are misreading it, because there's been a whole bunch of spruikers who have gone out and promised get-rich-quick schemes, and they were the stuff that I fell for when I spent my 120K, and so a lot of people have been burnt by that process. So I understand the skepticism and the issues and challenges there. Yeah. The reality is it's like learning another trade, okay? And like any trade, you need to put the due justice into the process to actually learn before you actually go out and do. And so when you put the effort in, it is no longer a get-rich-quick scheme. It's just get rich. And so it's effort, right? I like to think of it as an active sport. We make money by forcing value on through our knowledge and effort. So we need to, A, have knowledge, and B, do effort. But when you get it right, then you only have to learn it one time. And if you pick the right kind of strategy, you can then start small, step up a deal size, and start to scale by reapplying the knowledge from the previous project into the next project. And so that's where it starts to get really smart. So it doesn't have to be all hard work, but there is some hard work.
Yeah, well, it was hard work and anything. If you want to be successful, there's no question about that, Rob. But I guess just to sort of, because we had a lot listening, going, that the ears will really be pricking up at what we're talking about here. But given your sort of intimate knowledge of the development landscape right now, for those listening in, what's working and what's not, and why in the development arena?
Look, small scale development is the solution and the antidote to all of it. The industry globally has been talking about this concept for about 20 years, and Australia's been very, very slow to cotton onto it. Small scale infill development is what it's called, the missing middle. Now, what is the missing middle? Well, once upon a time, developers would do urban sprawl and they would just push the city out. Right. And then we found that people were spending too long to actually get into work. So then they would start to build apartments in the city. And as they did that, the bits in the middle, once upon a time, we had the dream of the big backyard. Well, now the baby boomers who bought the big backyard are now getting a bit long in the tooth, and the big backyard's become a pain in the butt. And yet there's all this road and sewer and stormwater infrastructure that has been built there. So how do we carve up what is already there and repurpose the infrastructure that's already in place? That is the missing middle. That is what they call infill development. That's the stuff where we need 80% of our stock, right? And in order to do that, some governments have done some really great initiatives to actually activate this. Some have some stuff in the pipeline, and a couple are a little bit asleep at the wheel. Now, I'm not going to name the ones that are asleep at the wheel for fear of retribution when I'm trying to be, I guess, an industry advocate. But the ones that are doing fantastic at this is New South Wales. Yeah. So they have a concept called the Complying Development Code, or CDC, where you can actually do fast-track approvals for small-scale town duplexes and townhouses and the like. They also have a thing called TODs, a transport-orientated development. So that as you start to get a few runs on the board and you want to step up your deal size, then you do things near train centres, train stations and busways and that sort of thing that are very transport-orientated. And so you get higher density in and around those zones. Now, I would say 18 months ago, I would have said one of the worst in the country was Victoria. But as of April this year, they have completely flipped the switch on that, and with some massive changes to their legislation. Still early days with regards to it, but they're taking on the mantle, and I think they're going to, take on New South Wales for the leader of it. They've actually called it out to say they want to be the townhouse capital of the country, and they have, whilst they're not doing fast track approvals, they have removed all the issues, challenges, and obstacles that were previously in place before. So Victoria used to be very litigious in a thing called VCAT. So they've removed all the obstacles for that. They've made, code accessible developments where council can't say no so long as you meet the rules. And they're doing what they call pattern books with regards to if it meets a certain pattern, then you can actually then just go and build it. So some great work by those two states in particular.
Yep.
Where I would love to see, I guess, the other states take on, so South Australia, Western Australia, Queensland, those two states have got it right. So we should be mimicking that and trying to roll that out. So
yeah, beautifully said. And again, I think the necessity is the mother of invention, and Victoria, it's certainly painted itself into a pretty bleak corner there for a period of time, and then of course that gets megaphoned through the media, and all of a sudden it's on the nose. It's really refreshing to see that the Victorian government is taking the opportunity and seeing that there's better opportunity in balconies and backyards, and that infill development that you're talking about is a clear exercise there. And you mentioned the TODs, the transport orientated developments. As an architect many years ago, good old South Australia, who was pretty vision sighted in relation to their planning at the time. They introduced TODs back in the early 90s to try and create satellites outside of the CBD, which is very encouraging. So obviously, there's some pretty good stuff happening in all of those things. One area that you touched on a little bit, and it tends to be a bit of a handbrake, as you mentioned, particularly in relation to the prefab stuff that you're doing the work on, is development finance. Again, there'll be a lot of people listening in who are just getting their head around the development opportunity. Can you sort of share with us some of the differences between development finance compared to traditional investment loans and how they need to navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two parts to this. We've been indoctrinated with residential lending into, the psyche, which makes the banks, very profitable. I think we've got 4 of the top 10 richest banks in the world all living in Australia. By coincidence, we happen to have a big 4. What do you know? But they've indoctrinated us on a 20% deposit and serviceability for, a 20 or 30-year loan. Yeah. The challenge with that is that when you're going to the property development side of things, they don't want the risk exposure of that because they know that they can get steady income coming from every single month of interest. So they're not interested in the property development world. So they make it very, very hard from that side. So we need to start to think about more commercial lending that are, savvy with, the property development side of things. Yeah. And in those instances, they are not interested in your serviceability, but rather the profitability of the deal. And that's because it's a short-term nature of a project, okay? Now, a lot of people are thinking, I can't get in because I've got no serviceability, and yet that's the exact opposite. If the deal is a deal, then these guys will actually fund the process. Yeah. What they're really wanting, though, as a antidote to the serviceability, is they want equity, which is, just a change in terminology. What we call deposit in the residential world, they call equity in the commercial world. So they want a slightly larger, deposit going into this, 30% typically, sometimes a little bit higher, based on the risk factor of the project. Yeah. Okay, so that equity can come in the form of cash. It can come in the form of equity that you've got in existing investment properties if you've been investing for a while, or it can come from what is called soft equity. Now, soft equity is the uplift in value that you get when you put a development approval on a property. So it's worth $1 million today. You put a DA on it. Now it's worth $1.5 million. You've just increased the equity by $500K. Yeah. Right. So if we can control the property for a long enough period, without necessarily owning it, then we can add that soft equity uplift and then manufacture deals where there weren't deals before. And we teach 7 different ways to control property when you've got little to no money and still profit from the process. So 7 different ways to manufacture money out of thin air.
Love it, love it. And that right there is the first of many reasons to reach out and get involved with you and the Property Development Network. Beyond that, and again, you've touched on a couple of these already, but I'd like you to dive in a little bit deeper. And you mentioned sort of managing profit margins and assessing risk, which I think is a big part of the whole equation in the development sphere. What do you see potential property developers getting wrong with risk and profit management?
There's a misconception that a piece of software that does a feasibility analysis will give you a magical outcome, right? But it's the old garbage in, garbage out. If you don't know what inputs to put into the software, then the answer that comes out on the other side, you can't necessarily rely on. Yeah. And so they are more fixated on, hey, have you got some software that I can actually plug into? And they haven't educated themselves in actually understanding what are the inputs that need to go in. Yeah. And in reality, there's only 2 inputs that you need to be good at. Okay. So sales, what should I be buying it for? What should I sell it for? Right. So get very, very good on your sales research. The other one is your site assessment research. So that is, what is the issues, challenges, and problems that I'm going to incur on that project that I need to solve in order to get to the end? Yeah. And so a lot of people miss that one. So they miss a problem that is hiding there in plain sight. Yeah. So it never goes into the feasibility. So the feasibility looks great, but when they go to run the project, the problem still turns up. Right. And so I joke about this, but I guess when I've never seen a feasibility when people are seeking money, I've never seen a feasibility that shows making a loss. Okay. They all say they're making money, and yet somehow some projects do make a loss. And it's because the people didn't put the right effort in to educating themselves in the first place to know how to avoid that problem.
Yeah, good point. I heard someone recently say that, a big part of the development exercise is you are building something that's not going to be completed until sometime in the future. And the mistake that a lot make is that they anticipate what the value is going to be in the future rather than run their numbers on what that property would sell today. And if it stacks up based on what's happening today, then you've got a better than even chance. But if you're shooting for pie in the sky stuff, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Would that be close to the mark or not?
That's absolutely true, but I guess the funders actually need it to stack up today. So when you're actually looking at it, you have to do this imaginary scenario that never exists in real world, and that is if I bought it today and then I could just miraculously materialize the new product instantaneously and sell it on the spot, would that make sense? Okay, and so the funders will only lend on that, and that's a limitation that is imposed because valuers are not allowed to predict the future. So they have to go, if I bought it and sell it in today's market. The reality is some projects will take 2, sometimes 3 years to run. Yeah. And so markets can fluctuate and change. The cost of construction can change. Yeah. So we need to factor all of that in and stress test the deal. So it needs to make money in today's market. Then we stress test. What happens if the market goes up? What happens if the market goes down? What happens if construction cost goes up? So when we start to stress test it, we don't need the stress test to be meeting the mythical 20%. We need the stress test to still go, am I happy to live with the consequences if it does go bad? Yeah. Right? And, we all want it to not go bad. And I'm painting a bad picture here. But if you do it correctly, you can de-risk the project. And people often ask me, I get this same question all the time, can you ever eliminate risk? And the answer is no, but you can identify it and manage it, okay? The metaphor I try to give people is really simple. When you're a kid, Bushy, were you told that it was dangerous to cross the road?
Absolutely.
Were you taught to look left, look right, look left again?
My word.
Can you cross the road safely? Is the car any less dangerous?
No, it's not. Exactly.
No. So, but you've identified the risk and you put a management plan in place, and then you manage the plan. You watch the car as you cross the road. So if you can do the same in property development, you educate yourself to find the problem, and then you put a management plan in place and you manage the problem, you will minimize that risk, okay? But you can never eliminate it. But now you know you can do a crosswalk. Now you can know you can press the button and wait for the little green man. There's lots of ways to solve the same problem, okay? But we've just got to look at it in that simplistic way to say, how do I find the problems in the first place?
Yeah, and I'm glad you emphasise that, because it doesn't matter what you get involved in, there's risk attached. So it's a matter of going in with your eyes open on that. And I've often said to people I've worked with in the past, if you do a development and you can't sell the properties for what you wanted to, but you can afford to hold them and rent them for a period until it does, if that's the worst place position and that flies, then at least you're going in expecting the worst and then managing for the best. And I think that sort of an approach needs to apply to anything you're doing in investment, whether it's new build or other from that perspective. But I guess sort of putting a bow around what we're talking here, Rob, because there are a lot of people where, given what they're seeing in the marketplace and where the opportunities might be, what's your feeling on who is best suited to property development and who should probably stay away?
The people that are best suited to it are the people that actually need to make a difference in their life. The thing that stops a great life, Bushy, is a good life. So if you're already comfortable, you're not going to put the effort in. But if you're in this really uncomfortable spot, you will do whatever it takes to actually get out. And it is the people I've seen with the biggest success have had the biggest obstacles to overcome in the first place. And so they had no choice but to put the effort in.
Yeah.
It's the people that have got a comfy job and they already own most of their house, but not all of their house. And, they're driving a really nice car. Those people, they want something nice, but they don't put the effort in. So if you can't tap into current pain, then tap into future pain. So if I stay in this house for another 10 or 20 years and I stay in the same job, how happy am I going to be in 10 or 20 years' time? Yeah. So sometimes we have to get uncomfortable with the future, right? The pain of the change needs to be less than the pain of staying the same. And if you're comfy, staying the same ain't that painful.
Very well said, Rob. I'm loving what you're sharing there, because that sort of getting into the nitty-gritties of that future pain when we're sort of complacently like a frog in a boiling pot can be challenging. But looking down the track and what life looks like if you don't take some action is something that people seriously need to look at and do their future selves a favour by taking the required action. If we look into the different ways of getting into property development, I know there's a variety of approaches that include joint ventures, syndicates, or going silo. How do you think aspiring developers and others should think about structure when they approach this year?
When you say structure, are you talking about entities and that sort of thing, or you're talking
about and methodology? Ways, yes, entities for sure, and ways of actually, if they don't have the ability to do it themselves, what are the options, like joint ventures or syndicates or others, and what are the pros and cons of those if they're starting to think about that?
Well, I'll dance around the entity side because I'm not legally able to, but sure. What I will say is whatever entity you want to get into, you have to think about the end in mind. So is your intention to sell everything, the intention to keep some stuff? Is it to sell some and keep some? Is it to keep all of it? When you understand that, that starts to inform the entity that you want to own it in at the end. Okay. Yeah. Do you want long-term capital gains tax discounts, or are you really just trying to flog it off with lower company tax, that sort of stuff? Okay. Yeah. Then you combine that with, well, if I'm bringing someone else in, maybe they need a structure and you need a structure. You might need to put those together. Okay. So it can get technical, but it's actually not that hard once you break it down into its core elements.
Yes.
typically it's going to be a hybrid structure of some description where you're going to want something from your side, they're going to want something from their side. Those two entities then join with another entity which does the development. And at the end, the development entity disappears, what they call a special purpose vehicle, and then your structure that owns the assets at the end stays on and keeps owning the asset. Very simple in concept, but I'm not going to tell you is it a company or a trust. Okay.
No, I don't want to go there either. I guess what I'm trying to highlight there is that they need to think beyond the normal exercise they might be used to in the residential sphere again, because there are a number of ways of skinning the cat. And as you very well say, is what's the end outcome looking like, and how do we need to structure ourselves to minimise
so long as the cat's
on the way in and protect ourselves on the way out. Yeah, spot on. No, brilliant.
So long as the cat's dead, mate. Oh, that's all I care about. Now, I've got a cat right here for those of you who are going to hate me later. So, now, I guess the key thing here, Bushy, is, and I think where you're trying to go with the question is your current lack of resources that you might actually have. How do you actually overcome them? Okay. So there are 3 lots of cash that you need to do any deal. So you need a deposit, you need serviceability, and you need liquid cash to run the deal. Yeah. Now, when you do a self-assessment and you go, what have I got? Then you can go, well, what's the problem I need to solve? Now, you can solve the problem in multiple ways, okay? So if you never buy the property, well, now you don't need deposit and you don't need serviceability. So if I did a joint venture with the landowner, well, I don't buy that. So all I need is the liquid cash to run it, yeah. Okay? If I've got serviceability, but I don't have the deposit or the cash, well, now I might partner with a money partner, yeah. Or I might partner with the landowner, who might become what they call vendor financed. So they get the 80% that I can get with my serviceability, and then they become the bank for the 20%, right? Or you might do a delayed settlement with early access type arrangement, either through a contract with delayed settlement or what is called an option contract, where you get the ability to add that soft equity before you need to actually purchase. So when we start to look at all the different permutations, it's amazing how many times you can overcome your lack of resources just by creatively structuring the deal, or having chats with people that are a little more financially resourced than you, that might be plugging a gap that you're missing.
Yeah, I love that share, because and you hit it on the head. I'm really encouraging those watching and listening in to think beyond the bounds of what they normally have done, because a lot of people are challenged in the typical residential sphere from borrowing capacity or equity access. That's become a real limitation for a lot of people. But if we're diving into a space like the property development network, where there is a pool of common-minded people who are going to be in all various different positions in that sphere, and as you well said, if they've got capacity but don't have equity, then there's likely to be able to rub shoulders with people or be introduced to someone who can fill that gap, and likewise with the others. So a great way to sort of, I guess, lift the lid on thinking beyond what they've been traditionally focused on, and start to creatively look at where the opportunities might be and the ways to make that happen. So beautiful.
I can give some tidbits into that if you want, into how to unlock those opportunities.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so a lot of the times we look at our lack of resources, and we determine that the only way we can do a deal is a particular outcome, right? So I said I've got 7 tools in my toolbox, but I just pull one out and that's a hammer, right? So now everything starts looking like a nail, because I can only do a vendor JV. So that's the only way I can do it. And so the problem is that I then start to miss a whole bunch of opportunities out there, because I didn't actually look at the opportunity for what it was. And instead of looking at my problem, I need to be looking at your problem, Bushy. Yeah. Why are you selling the property in the first place? Yeah. Now, when we understand you and your issues and challenges and problems, and more specifically your needs, there are 4 needs that I'm looking to actually identify and see where you fit on that scale. Okay. So the first of those needs is time. So I might ask you a very Innocuous question. So have you already bought the next place, Bushy?
Not yet.
Now,
I want to buy. Yep.
well, so if you've already bought the next place, I know that you're in a hurry. You need your cash today because you need that to buy the next one.
Yep.
But if you haven't yet bought the next place, then you probably need time to find it. So now it's a matter of, well, how much time? How much of a hurry are you in? Now, there's lots of other questions that we ask, but we kind of try to find where somebody sits on the spectrum. So time is one. Now, if they give me time, that's time I'm not paying interest. That's time I'm not paying land tax. That's time I'm not paying rates and a whole bunch of other things. So I could potentially avoid that cost or defer that cost to a later point in time. So if your property was worth $1 million today, and I could wait 12 months, 6.5% of interest is 65K of saving. That's probably 15K of land tax, another 10K of rates. I could give the vendor 1.1 in 12 months' time. My project is exactly the same profitability, but my cash flow was better, and I didn't need to come up with the cash up front. And that allows me to do the soft equity. So time is a valuable one.
Yeah.
The next one is certainty. Right? Some people just don't like complexity in their life, okay? It needs to be an unconditional contract. That's all I'm going to deal with. If I'm dealing with a little old lady who's moving on in life, she's already had hassles in her life. She doesn't want any more, okay? But there's some people that go, well, if I can get a little bit more money in the process, I'd be willing to do something that would be subject to development approval, for example. Or so when you have certainty, the ability to walk away from a deal and de-risk it from a developer is worth something. Yeah. I'm willing to put a small amount of money into the process to find out whether or not I'm going to get a really big uplift. Okay, yeah. So certainty is important. The next one is risk. Okay, so are they willing to share the risk of the deal and hence potentially share the reward of the process? So some people, no way on earth will they actually do that. But if they do that, their property might be contributing into the soft equity that you need or the equity you need for the deal. Okay, so when you start to put those together. And money is the last one. So how much money do they want? Okay. And everybody says they want this, but it's not what they say they want. It's what do they actually need? What's the need to move on to their next phase? So when you understand where they sit on those spectrums, quite often it's a little bit of a combo of those. So maybe they need 50K straight away, but they can wait for the rest. Right? Maybe they're behind in their mortgage, or they've got some medical bills, or they're behind on their payments of something. You give them that 50K, and they might be able to happily wait for the rest. Right? So when you start to map that out and look at their journey, all of a sudden you can now, which tool in my toolbox can I actually start to apply to the problem?
Love it. It's I love that framework because it's looking at solving someone else's problem that's going to help give you your solution, which is a great way to frame that exercise. Given all of that, Rob, and talking from the sort of typical, perhaps first timer who's wanting to dip their toe into the development space, so average incomes and average equity, where do you believe the best opportunities for them are in development right now in terms of location, type, or scale?
Look, the first thing I would say is suspend all belief with regards to your purchasing power. Yeah. Because we often constrain ourselves to say, well, I've only got X amount of money, so therefore I have to do it in some regional remote place, that sort of thing. We want to look at where is the population going, okay? So we've got all these international migrants coming into the country. They're moving somewhere. Understanding where those somewheres are, and there's many, many somewheres. So each state government maps out a journey as to, hey, it's going to cost us X amount of money to build roads and schools and hospitals, and so they're painting a picture for you. These are the growth spots that we want these people to go. Okay, when you start to understand that, there's 4 states that are going to be massively positioned for this. So you've got, I guess, Southeast Queensland in particular, as I'll say Queensland, yep. New South Wales, Victoria, and WA. So those 4 are going to get massive growth. Okay, now everyone else doesn't miss out. Adelaide will still get quite a large jump, but strangely, they get a jump for a peculiar reason. Okay, they are a capital city, but they're also deemed to be a regional town, as is Perth.
Yeah.
And so when a skilled migrant comes to town, often they need to work in a regional centre. So you'll find that there's still demand for both Adelaide and Perth for those reasons. And they're, I guess, much higher net worth person in doing so. So you're not going to get the lower side of the migrants coming in.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at those four areas, it's really understanding, well, now that I know they're going to those capital cities, where in the capital city are they going to fit, right? And you've got some geographical challenges, is there rivers, is there mountains, is there that sort of stuff? Then you've got your transport challenges. Well, what infrastructure is already there? And when you start to map it out, knowing where people are going to work and how they're going to get there is painting a picture for you to say, that spot over there, that's about to boom.
Yeah. And again, all that information's publicly free. If you dig into your state government records, council minutes, the whole box and dice is there. If you are serious about taking the time to uncover that, and I've often said, that there's so much focus, particularly in the residential space now, Rob, on rearview mirror historic data. That's okay to some level, but if we're serious about really generating equity, whether it be short-term or long-term, if we're not focusing on future growth drivers, and you've touched on the infrastructure, industry, and then the allied growth and incomes that supports that comes in behind it to make that happen, then that's where the sort of future-focused telescope needs to be pointed and not driving the car and trying to manoeuvre it through the rear vision mirror. So I guess, again, just to sort of bring that to a head, Rob, it's very clear from what you've touched on already that there's a massive opportunity emerging in front of us. Sort of paint that out in a little bit more detail for us in relation to why and what that opportunity does look like and why.
Look, and you touched on the drivers and looking into the future. We teach 16 different drivers that we map consistently. Where do we think we're going in 6 months, 12 months, and beyond?
Right.
And as we start to map this out, and we've been doing it publicly on record for the last 5 years or so, we've hit an upswing where almost every single tailwind, so that's a wind at your back, is pushing us in the right direction. So we've got interest rates coming down, we've got population growth happening, we've got, births, we've got all the government spending happening. So we've got the supply and demand dynamic, working on our side. When we put all these different drivers together, everything says we've got I'm going to say anywhere from a 3 to a 5 year window where we're going to get massive uplift from the development stacked on top of capital growth, right? So when you combine those two together, it's like a double win, right? And so for the right people who put the right effort in, they're going to get some massive returns in the next few years.
Yeah, I love it. It's certainly very evident, and given that the government targets are so far behind already and have got no hope of getting close to what's required, then we've got a growing gap that provides the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that. So
well, you touched on it in the intro. 1.2 million homes in 5 years is what they need. They're only on target to do just shy of 800,000. Yeah. So we're a good 400,000 homes short. So when you talk about supply and demand, there it is right there. And the further we get into the 5 years, the more that demand starts to grow because the greater the shortfall starts to become.
Absolutely. And if they follow your guidance in relation to what and where, as you've just sort of uncovered with some of the key future growth drivers, then there's a pot of gold waiting for those that are smart enough to take advantage of it. So it's a perfect segue, I guess, into for those that are really keen on finding out more, how do they get involved with the Property Development Network?
So we've got a number of different ways. The best way, just Google Property Developer Network. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a YouTube channel. We run monthly events all the way around the country. But if you go to our website, developernetwork.com.au, that is the portal to jump off into all those different places. Yeah, YouTube or live events, mate. They're the hang around with people doing it. That's how just to become absorbed in it.
100%, and we'll have all of the links in the show notes. So I now want to sort of give you the blindfold and cigarette and ask you the fast four questions that
mate.
Glenn. And what's your current favourite quote and why, Rob?
Well, it's been one for a very long period of time. Don't let your lack of resources stop you from being resourceful. Now, that is something that you can apply both in the property development side, but also in life in general. Just ask yourself, how do I? So ignoring what resources I've got, well, if anything was possible, how could I actually achieve that? And when you start to do that, it ends up being who is the person that actually give me the knowledge that to actually get me where I want to go.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. I want you to put your cape and tights on now, Rob. What superpower do you wish you had and why?
Well, once upon a time, it used to be invisibility, but I worked out over time that at some point you have to materialize, and your clothes are not going to be there. So that's not convenient. So I want to be flying like Superman, mate. I want to be, I guess, able to shoot to wherever I want to go at the speed of light. And if I can hover as well, that'd be great as well.
Love it. If you can have a copy with absolutely anyone, whether they be alive or dead, who would you choose and why?
Look, there's a lot of people that probably won't like this one, and a lot of people will. He's a love or hate kind of guy. But Elon Musk, and it's his ability to simplify problems down to their essential elements. Yeah. So I guess from engineering rocket ships to building business empires and everything, what he does is he just cuts to the root of what is the barest minimum that needs to happen for this thing to succeed. And hence why he's currently, I guess, in the US government with the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and he's just cutting it to the bone to go, we don't need all this excess. What do we need is something that is just efficient and effective.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. That would be a very interesting chat. Apart from your own resources, what books, podcasts, or programs should we dive into if we're serious about property development?
If you're serious about property development, the most important thing that you're ever going to need is negotiation skills and the ability to actually deal with humans. So I'm going to say Chris Voss. He's a famous FBI negotiator that negotiated hostages getting out. He's got a book called Never Split the Difference. So I highly recommend that. And then two books by a gentleman by the name of Robert Cialdini. One is called Influence. And one is called Persuasion. So the conversation you have before you get to the negotiation, where you kind of lead them down the path of the fact that you're probably the right person to deal with. So they're, from a book's perspective, they're going to help you eat heaps with the negotiations. And then the next challenge is your mindset. Property developers make money by solving problems, which means we're exposed to problems, and our mental state is super important. So I guess Chris Wilkes, Alex Hormozy, and The Diary of a CEO, those three are really going to feed the brain.
Yeah, love it. And yeah, I've been involved with all of those and read those. They are awesome resources to get resourceful, as you so well coined. Your key takeaway message and must-do action for aspiring property developers, Rob?
You can only change your current position by actually, I guess, taking an action. So take an action, come to a meetup, just hang around with other people that are doing the thing that you want to do. As humans, we are a herd pack. So if you're hanging around a herd of people who are not doing property development, they're going to tell you it's a bad thing to do. So find a new herd. Find a herd of people who are doing it, and they're going to tell you that the old way of doing it isn't going to work for you. And once you find your tribe, then things will work.
Love it. No question about that. Final question, Rob. What does get invested mean to you?
So what does it get? It means invest in yourself, right? We touched on, I guess, the podcasts and the ebooks and the courses and that sort of thing. Your mind is your biggest weapon. So you want to sharpen the axe on that. And you can never learn less, Bushy. So once you've learned something, the next thing builds on that something. And so the more you learn, the better you get. And the more you apply that knowledge, the more you work out the difference between education and wisdom. So education, I could be sharp as a tack, but wisdom is when I work out the real world, what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, it's absolutely spot on. Look, thanks, Rob. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. I love your energy, the enthusiasm, and the gold that you've been sharing with us. I think it's a very timely discussion, and we're going to make sure that we get you back on again to unpack more on the growing property development opportunity. And for freedom finders listening in, if today's conversation with Rob hasn't got you thinking differently about the power and the pitfalls of property development, then you need to go back and have another lesson, because here's the bottom line. In flat and uncertain conditions, which many areas are now likely to experience in the absence of the strong future growth drivers that we've been talking about, now that the post-pandemic petrol is well and truly branded out, growth isn't something you can afford to wait for. It's something you need to manufacture. And as you just heard, never has that opportunity been greater. As Rob shared, we're on the verge of a property development boom, and prefab housing may be about to reshape how our homes are actually built. And right now, not someday, it's the best time in the last 20 years to start your development journey. But this only works if you've done the homework, you've got the right mindset, you've built the right team, you have the time and capacity, and you carefully manage and balance the potential rewards with risk minimisation measures, all as Rob has just spoken about. So if you resonated with Rob's message today, make sure you do connect through the Property Developer Network. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you go back and have a listen to Rob's previous deep dive on episode 230 of Get Invested for even more foundational development gems. And if you'd like to explore any of these and any of this and other issues that you're experiencing, click on the link in the show notes to book in a personal solution session with me so that I can help you craft the best pathway to your goals. And hey, if you know someone who's been talking about development but hasn't actually taken any action, do them a massive favour and share this episode with them. Because together, we can all move forward by design and not by default. Until next time, invest in your knowledge and your network before you invest in assets. And as always, get invested. So thanks again, Rob, and let's make sure we keep the conversation going.
Thanks, Bushy. See you, folks.
Thanks for tuning in to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, your home for property investment insights and inspiration. Make sure you subscribe to Property Hub for free. Get your weekly dose of Get Invested inspiration along with every episode of Realty Talk, Australia's top online property show for red-hot property investing news and insights direct from industry leaders and influencers. And finally, I'll see you next time.